All right, so the next problem, number 28, is similar again. So you are given that in 2000, the population of a country reached 1 billion, and in 2025, it reached 1.1 billion. So basically what we are told in here, we're given 2 points. We're given that in 2000, in the year 2000, the population was 1 billion, and another point in 2025, the population was 1.1 billion. So this is an X and this is an Y. So the X represents the year and the Y represents the population. And we are kind of given the equation for it, the formula, but with some missing values. Notice that we're given that P of X is equal C times A to the power X minus 2000. So we are not given what the initial population is, C, and we are not given what the growth factor is. We have to figure those out for part A. So for part A, it asks to find the values for C and A. So we need to use the fact that for a given X and Y, for example, for the first one, when X is 2000, the output P of 2000 is 1. So this is my X and this is my P of X. So if I substitute these two values in this equation, I get that the output P of X is 1. So 1 must be equal to, I don't know what happened. I don't know. Okay. There you go. Oh, it's back. Sorry about that. So we are given the point 2000 for X and 1 for the output. So when X is 2000, so I'm going to have C times A. Instead of X, I'm going to have 2000 minus 2000. The output is 1. So instead of P of X, I put 1, and instead of X, I put 2000. So then 2000 minus 2000 is 0, so I'll get A to the 0. But A to the 0 is 1, so this gives me that C equals 1. So we found C, and now to find A, we're going to use the other point. So the other point given is in 2025, the population grew to 1.1 billion. So now when X is 2025, the output P of that X is 1.1. So the equation is going to become, I'm using this, instead of P of X, I'm going to put 1.1, the output, equals C, which I just found that is 1, times A to the power, instead of X, I'm going to put 2025. So therefore, I get that 1.1 equals A to the power 25. So now I have to solve for A. So what I have to do, I have to take 25th root of both sides. Just recall, like, if I have A squared equals 9, I take square root of both sides to get that A equals 3. Well, almost. This is okay. So this is similar. I have to take 25th root of both sides. So taking 25th root of both sides, so instead of just square root, it's 25th root. So I'll get 25th root of 1.1 equals, well, 25th root of A to the 25th, the 25th root and the power 25 cancel, so I just get A on this side. So A is 25th root of 1.1. Another way to write this is 1.1 to the power 1 over 15. So 25th root means power 1 over 15. So now when I go to my calculator, I put 1.1 to the power 1 over 25 equals 1.038. So A equals 1.0, was it just 0038? All right, so this is part A. Part B now, it says to estimate the country's population in 2008. Okay, so that means that I need to find the population, P of X, for X equals 2008. So B just asks, what is the population? So we know that the population is C times A to the X minus 2000, but we found that C was 1 and A was 1.0038. So now the population in 2008 is basically population when X, the input, is 2008. So the population in 2008, that's what this means, is just going to be 1.0038. And instead of X, I have 2008 minus 2000. So this is going to give me 1.0038 to the power 8. So when I put that in the calculator, 1.0038 to the power 8, I get that the population is going to be 1.03. Remember, this is billions, 1.03 billions. It makes sense because this is a exponential growth. So at first in 2000 it's 1 billion. In 25 years it was 1.1 billion. It makes sense that in just 8 years it's something in between a billion and 1.1 billion. And then for the last part, use P, so use the formula to determine the year when the country's population might reach 1.7. So basically here is where we have to find X. For what X is P of X, the population 1.7 billion. So this again is going to be solved, since we're solving for X and X is an exponent. To solve it algebraically, we would need logarithm, but to solve it graphically, we can just graph these things. So in Y, I'm going to put the formula of P of X, which was 1.0038 to the power X minus 2000. And then in here, I'm interested to see when the output is equal to 1.7. So I need to see the intersection of these two, just like in the previous one. Now we got to think of the window. So the X is years, starting in 2000. Yeah, so I need to think a little. For example, I know that in 2025 the population is just 1.1, and I'm interested to find when it's 1.7, so it has to go more than 2025, right? It's going to take some time to reach 1.7. So let's just go to, I don't know, let's try how many years after 2000. Let's try 100 years and see if that's enough. So I'm going to put that the years go to 2100, 100 years after 2000, and see if it takes 100 years to reach 1.7, or how long. And then the Y max, well, this is an exponential growth that starts at 1 billion, right? So, and I want to see when it reaches 1.7 billion. So I should at least look at up to 3 billion so that I see the 1.7. So if I put 3 in here and graph, let's see if that's giving us what we need. So here's the exponential growth, and here is the 1.7 billion. Can you see that I don't see the intersection point? So it's taking longer than 100 years to reach 1.7 billion. So I need to change my X. I need to go more than 100 years so that I can see the intersection point. So I'm just gonna try maybe 21,150, 50 more years, and then graph it. There's the exponential growth, and I still can't see it. So this is where a little, let's go 250. Okay, now I can clearly see the intersection point. So if I find the x value of the intersection point, that's going to tell me when the population reached 1.7 billion. So just like before, I'm going to press second trace, which is going to take me to calculate, and I'm going to calculate the intersection point. I hit enter, I hit enter again, and enter again, and enter again, so basically 3 times. And this is going to give me that the intersection happens at 2139.9, so we can round it to 2140. So in the year 2140, that's when the population of this specific country reached 1.7 billion. All right, so for C, it was 2140.